Live right now on all the media. I'm going to double check that if everybody can mute themselves unless they have a question.
I have a question, Adam.
Yes, Eric.
What does Manscape Architect mean?
Thank you for asking. Manscape Architect. So that's the brand that I created for this, and it's decidedly playful and it's not literal. The notion came to me. I actually bought the domain name probably about a year ago because we were talking about my friend who is an architect. He's a landscape architect, and we were talking about being in midlife. And the advice that I often give people is in the realms of being a single dad in his 50s in midlife. You know, a topic that sometimes comes up is dating and the modern realm of manscaping. And we were joking about, you know, it would be cool to become a manscape architect, but it is designed to be sort of a broader commentary on what it's like to be a man in this era, going through the things that I'm going through in my life. And, you know, if I do anything with this, I would probably, you know, just be sharing my thoughts on what that's like. So that's what Manscape Architect was about. But who knows? It's not something I'm taking seriously. I'm just here to sort of teach you guys some things that I know while we all have a lot of time on our hands. And if something comes out of this, then cool. I'm just seeing that I've accidentally put in the wrong metadata on here. But I think it's too late to change it. So I'm going to have to change it afterwards. But if anybody's looking at this, we're not live cooking khao soi. We are making what it's like to be a man in this era. Sorry. While we all have a lot of time on our hands. There we go. We're making gnocchi, ricotta gnocchi. We're going to do MARCELLA'S tomato sauce, and we're going to do a radicchio salad. So it's an ambitious project. Everybody should hunker down and get ready for some serious cooking. Nothing is really hard in what we're doing today. These are all fairly easy things unto themselves. I think this is more about sort of organizing yourself and planning out and timing it. So the order in which we're going to do this is we're going to start by soaking our radicchio. Radicchio is a more bitter lettuce, and it benefits from soaking an ice bath. It leaches out some of the bitterness from it. So we're going to start that way. Then we're going to make the sauce. So the sauce has some time to cook. Then we'll make the gnocchi. And then we'll focus on making the dressing for the salad. We'll assemble that salad, get that out of the way, and then we will assemble our final gnocchi dish. So the things that you will need, you all have the ingredient list, but I think most importantly is to have, I'm using my salad spinner, straight in my salad spinner to start, because I'm going to put ice in here, and we're going to cut up the radicchio with ice in the salad spinner. So let's start with this. The radicchio salad, I've been doing this for a long time. I originally learned how to make a radicchio salad in a cooking class with Hiro Sone, who was the restaurant Terra up in Napa, was pretty famous for their radicchio salad. So I attended a class at the CIA up in wine country, where he was teaching how to make this salad. This is somewhat similar. I don't remember specifically what he did. I always put my variation on things, but I've made it my own over the years. And I love it. It's a crowd pleaser. It's super easy. And the dressing itself is something that you can use for all sorts of other salads, and you can build on that. So we're going to start with a head of radicchio. When I cut my radicchio, I usually do quarters. So I start off with the halves. You can see there's a pretty big core inside the radicchio. So when I cut it into a quarter, what that does is it exposes an angle, an edge that I can just lop off now. So as I'm about to soak it, I'm just going to soak this guy as it is without the wedge or the core in there. So I'm going to do that on all the quarters. And then I will discard of my little compost here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some ice. So I'm going to disappear for a second. I'm going to put a couple handfuls of ice in here. And then I'm going to hit it with some cold water in the sink. And I'm going to fill it up so that it covers the lettuce. And then I'm going to let that soak. I would say you usually want to let it soak for a minimum of about 15, 20 minutes, but I usually let it go for a half an hour to an hour. And you'll notice a big difference. The lettuce in the radicchio just becomes much more desirable, much less bitter. Okay, so we've done that. Everybody good? All right. Is there no Amy today? Oh, there she is.
I'm here.
She came late.
Of course I'm here.
And Bergen, if you can turn your video on, we prefer to have people with their video on if they're hanging out. If you're just lurking, you might head over to Facebook if you're not cooking with us. We are live on Facebook. We want everybody on the video to be cooking and here with questions. I'm going to make the sauce now. Okay. So for the gnocchi, the sauce that we're making right here, man, if you haven't made this sauce before, then you're in for a treat because this is one of the all-time great sauces ever. Originally, I would say this cookbook for me, let's see what year it says, but I got this, it says 1993. I probably bought it right then. It says 1992 is the copyright. This is a 1993 edition. This is probably that old. This is the MARCELLA'S Essentials of Classic Italian Cooking. And this is a Bible. If you're looking for one cookbook to own on Italian food, I would say get this cookbook because it is magnificent. And the one sauce in here that has become legendary is this one that says tomato sauce with onion and butter. Couldn't be a more simple sauce, but couldn't be more brilliant. And I'm always talking about, you know, the brilliance and simplicity. So let's make this. The ingredients are tomatoes. As always, I'd like to talk about the DOP San Marzano Roma tomatoes. You want to look for the DOP. These are going to be consistently sweet and have the right acidity. They are regulated in their production. I've said it before, they come from the soil of Mount Vesuvius, magnificent stuff. So I'm gonna open up a can of San Marzano tomatoes. You can use fresh tomatoes for this recipe, by the way. That's what she talks about in the cookbook. I am a massive fan of these for consistency, but if it's tomato season, which it's not right now, then sometimes I will put some fresh tomatoes in here. Now, as I've also said before, I like the consistency of my tomato sauces to be smooth. So I have I'm not using the food mill this time, but I'm using a hand blender, an immersion blender. So I'm gonna go right into my can and hopefully not overflow here to make a smooth consistency. If you want to put it in a food processor, you can break them up by hand as you put them into the pot. Anything goes. But for me, I like, you know, a very smooth sauce actually. So I'm going right into the can with this guy, and then we're gonna go right into the pot with these tomatoes. The three elements could not go better together. This gnocchi though, and it goes really well with gnocchi, potato gnocchi in particular. This gnocchi, the ricotta gnocchi, goes well with this, but you can also do with just like a butter and sage sort of sauce, or you can fry them after you boil them, fry them a little bit, put a little bit of a crust on them, and serve it with some mushrooms, which I often do. So these ricotta gnocchi are pretty versatile. Also, you can freeze them, which is really useful. So after you make these, if you pop them in the freezer, you can then put them in a plastic bag and keep them for a long time. Okay, so tomatoes going into the pan, and I'm going to put it on a medium to low heat. You don't want this to boil over. That said, it's not like our stocks where you're going to get cloudy. It's just, you don't want it to cook too hard too fast. The next thing that we add to this is a half a stick of butter. So literally putting some beautiful, tasty fat in there, unsalted butter, half a stick. Let me give you the overhead here. Give me 1 sec to flip the camera and then do this and then do that. There we go. So you'll see soon there'll be a puddle. And then we're going to take a medium onion and we're going to cut it in half this way. So stem to stem. And you're going to cut it right down the middle. And then you're going to peel off the skin on one of the sides of it. Really doesn't matter which one. And I do like to trim off a little bit of the rough stem there, just because I don't want that in my sauce. I'd like it a little cleaner. But we're going to be pulling this. This does not stay in the sauce, but this goes in. So there is your sauce. As I said, it couldn't be more simple, but you'll see the brilliance of this when it all comes together. We let this cook for the better part of half an hour. So while we're making our gnocchi, we let this cook. Don't salt it till the end because it will reduce down a little bit. And then we're going to get into our gnocchi. So that was easy, right? That's the entirety of the sauce. You come home on a weeknight when you're not in a pandemic and you seek to have a quick sauce. This works really well. I wouldn't use it with dried pasta, like, just dried spaghetti in this or penne or something like that. This to me goes better with fresh pasta, gnocchi, ravioli. It's fantastic with a cheese-filled ravioli. Play with it. Let me get a wooden spoon. You can see in the overhead camera, I'll show it to the folks on Facebook, that the butter starts to melt into it. And you just give it a little stir here and there. And over time, all the flavors will come together. We'll salt it at the end, and it's a magical, magnificent sauce. So, everybody with me so far? Okay, good. Gnocchi. So most of you are familiar with potato gnocchi, and making potato gnocchi, I could do another class on that. I have a pretty good technique, and I love to do it. The elements of a potato gnocchi are basically potato and flour and a little egg, depending on your technique or your recipe. Similarly, a ricotta gnocchi, which can be seen almost like a nudie, depending on the size that you make it, is similarly just the cheese, the flour, some Parmesan, some ricotta, maybe a little pepper, some eggs to bind it. And then the whole trick here and what we're going to do is about getting the right amount of flour into it. So the first thing I want to do is get a pot of water boiling because we want to have this ready. So get your pots. Look at this two-handed action here. Okay. And same with any other pasta. You want to salt the water. Again, the myth of the seawater salting is not necessary here, but you do want it to be salty to flavor your pasta. So as I've always said, not sponsored by, but Diamond Kosher, the way to go. And, I'll probably hit it with a good 3 tablespoons in there for that size of a pan. And then I'm going to put a lid on this, let it go. I'm going to have a slotted spoon on the ready. This is a really good slotted spoon, by the way. I don't know if you guys have seen these in your kitchen stores, but this definitely works well. Amalicious got one. Okay, so let's,
and I love it.
Let's look back at the sauce for a second. If you go back to this other camera, you can see it's starting to bubble a little bit on me here. I'm going to turn it down. I don't want it to go past that. That's about the amount of bubbling I want. And we're going to just run with that for the next 30 minutes to an hour. You can cook it longer if you want too. It only just gets deeper, darker, more tomatoey. So that's where we are with the sauce. Okay. So here we've got, this is a 12-ounce container of ricotta, depending on how much you have. I use, you might have a 15-ounce container, 18-ounce. This is Bellwether Farms. They do a really good job. This has been a good choice for me. Sort of the baseline, the lowest end one that I use is Calabro from a national brand. I think Calabro makes a good product. Bellwether is based, it'll be an interesting thing to find out. Not that I'm trying to sell them, but I think it's in Petaluma, so it's local. And I think it's a really great product. I'm gonna get a mixing bowl. So we're gonna put our ricotta in the bowl. And again, simple recipe. This is just about effort and technique, right? So all of the ricotta in the bowl. If you get a cheap ricotta, what you're gonna find is that it's gonna be pretty watery. So you're gonna wanna strain a cheaper ricotta through a fine mesh strainer. This stuff has been sitting in a basket. It's pretty tight. I don't think there's a lot of residual liquid. Let me do this. I'm going to set up the camera so you can see inside my bowl, because I want to take care of you, my people. Okay. So that other camera, now you can see inside my bowl. Let's go to the, I'm getting better at my production value here. Okay. So what we're going to want to do is add Parmesan. I told you to get a 1/4 pound. I would say about a cup of Parmesan. So we're talking a lot. Don't be shy. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to put, I wouldn't say it's an equal part to the ricotta, but it's a mountain. It's about the amount of Parmesan that my mother puts on a single plate of pasta. And, by proxy, I've learned to do that myself and my son. And just, the smell of this. And by the way, I don't know if I told everybody, but I had to reset my diet because I was busting out of everything. So I'm not actually going to be eating these, which is a damn shame. But I needed to stop because I was on a pretty bad tear for this lockdown.
Adam?
Yes.
How much Parmesan are we putting in?
I would say about a cup of microplane Parmesan. It depends on how much you like. I probably just put about a cup in that bowl right there. I love the stuff, so I'm not shy. And then I would put in a little bit of black pepper. As we did with cacio e pepe, cheese and pepper go really well together. And in particular in this. You don't need to put salt in this because, and as far as the cracked pepper, I would just say, maybe it's half a teaspoon-ish. You can see inside my bowl there. And then we're going to put some eggs in. Now, it depends on what size eggs you have again. I brought different ones to illustrate. So these are both pastured eggs, but look at the size difference. This is a large egg. So I could almost get away with one of these, but if you have small to medium sized eggs, then you probably want to put in 2. So I'm going to do 2 of the smaller eggs. And just gauge for yourself how big your eggs are. Always hit eggs on the side, not the edge of a bowl, so you don't get your shells all up in there. And then we're going to mix up the eggs before we incorporate them, and then incorporate the eggs. And you'll get, kind of a rough looking little mix here, and just keep going until you get it pretty smooth. Okay, now here comes the fun part. We're gonna make gnocchi. Just gonna check my sauce again. Again, this is about the level of boil that you want on the sauce. Like, fat is separating. It's sort of cooking gently. So do that. What you eating, Bergen?
That's just the sauce.
It will need salt. Okay. So in order to make this, what you're going to do is, I said have a cup of flour. I'm using 00 flour, which is the pasta flour. You can use all-purpose flour. What you want to do is probably put in about half of a cup to start, and you're going to incorporate that half of a cup into your gnocchi dough. And this is the part where it really depends on the water content of your ricotta, because you may have to go way more or somewhat less. So I'm just starting to get incorporation there, so I'm definitely going to need more. So I'm just going to keep adding flour until a very light dough comes together. You want it to be wet. It's going to be wet. There is no question. The flour is to bind it, so it's still not quite there. But it's not going to feel like a dough that you're used to. All right, I think mine just hit the mark. So you'll see that it just holds itself together. When it first starts to hold itself together, it's still going to be wet and it's still going to stick to the sides of your bowl pretty well. But when you touch it, maybe a little bit more. So I'm pretty much at that full cup right here with what I have. The trick is you don't want to use too much flour because, one, the raw flour tastes isn't all that great. You want it to be a cheesy thing, and you just want enough for it to stick together. So I think we're good here. Hey, Judah, did you want to help me? You want to help? So Judah was talking about helping. I am going to move my cutting board because I work better on my counter here. And what we're going to do is we're going to flour the counter pretty well. I'm going to come back to the main camera. So I'm going to flour the counter. And I'm going to
Can you show us your gnocchi again?
Yeah, it's right here.
Got it. Okay.
So you can see that it's together, but it's still wet. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to plop some down on the counter. Okay. I've got good flour on the counter. I'm going to put flour on my hands. And then I'm going to just start rolling it. Okay. And if it starts to stick too much, you get your bench scraper here. Put a little bit more flour. It's okay to have the flour on the outside. And you're just going to start rolling it down until it comes out to about the thickness of a gnocchi. And if you're going for nudie, you can go much bigger. Nudie spelled Gnudi. So it starts to get a little fragile. So you want to just, as you're getting close to the thickness, this is about the thickness of a gnocchi, and this is about 3/4 of an inch. So as I'm rolling this out, I'm going for about 3/4 of an inch for some bigger beasts here. And then I use my bench scraper. Actually, I'm going to get a sheet tray with some parchment on it because I'm going to use that to hold my gnocchi before it goes in.
Hey, Adam, I just keep adding flour till I get that texture, right?
Yeah, don't add too much though. You don't more than a cup would probably. How much ricotta was in your container?
I got 32 ounces, but I put 12 in.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be, for the 12 ounces that I did, you should definitely not use more than a cup of flour.
Yeah, I'm still less than a cup.
Okay. It's going to feel wetter than you expect.
Okay.
Okay. Then what we do is we get our bench scraper. We put a little flour on the edge of our bench scraper, and we go gnocchi size, gnocchi size, gnocchi size. And as you can see here, I'm cutting the gnocchi into.
Hey, Adam.
Adam, your bag is in the way of the camera on your iPhone.
Oh, sorry. So these are little pillows of love. And there we have perfect little gnocchi, guys. And then what you would do is take your parchment, toss a little flour on that, and use your bench scraper so that they don't stick, and bring these guys over to this. And make more. Is everybody getting the gnocchi? Is it turning into little pillows of love for you? I didn't hear anybody, so I assume you all shook your head yes. Yeah, thumbs up. I see thumbs up. All right, I'm going to take, of course, I forgot to turn my water on. Thanks for reminding me, guys. I'm going to take out some more of this. It looks like I'm doing it in about thirds. The last one might be a little bit less. I get some flour on it. It's sticky. If you don't have that flour, you'll feel it. It's sticky, but there should be enough flour in there to hold it together. There have been, I think once, maybe twice in the dozens of times that I've made this, that I was aggressive. Maybe I was doing it on 420. And I might have not put enough flour and they just fall apart in the water, and you don't want that to happen. So that's the key to whether you've been successful, is if they don't fall apart in the water. Happy 420 day to everybody, by the way. To me, that just means it's 3 days till my birthday. Move this here. All right, second round. Patonk, patonk, patonk. If you hit it right, you don't even need to pinch them because it gives them that pillow shape with the bench scraper. Maybe I'll try one. It's so light and so fluffy.
Adam, if my gnocchi dough is just not rollable, do I need to add more flour?
It may be rollable, that it just feels like it's not. Who was that asking?
Sabina.
Sabina. Show me your bowl.
I wish I could. Hold on, let me see.
You can just lift your bowl up.
Hold on. There.
Yeah, it looks pretty wet. How much was there, and how much flour did you use?
A 15-ounce container of ricotta, and I probably
How
put
many
in
ounces? How many
15,
ounces?
15 ounces.
Okay, yeah. So you should be maybe a little bit more than a cup.
I've done a cup and a half already.
Oh, then don't. Then look at mine. Mine is wet and it's loose. It's just
Yeah.
flour on the bench.
Yeah, okay.
Scrape it out and then put flour on top of it, and just don't put your hands in it. Just put your hands on it.
Okay.
That makes sense. Does everybody understand what that means? I'm going to dry my hands here because you don't want to touch it with wet hands. Is it struggling?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I'm kind of sticky fingers. This is what I have on my hands right now.
Yeah, wait, wash your hands off. Wash your hands off and start fresh.
All right, I got to run outside to the water spigot. I'll be right back.
Okay. Everybody else is okay with it? Yeah.
I mean, mine's pretty sticky, but it's it's starting to come together a little bit.
Okay.
I think it's okay. It's a
Yeah, I
little
mean,
bit-
it should come pretty easy like this once you get the flour on it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm getting there. Getting there.
Is anyone else struggling?
A little bit, Sina.
Okay.
You're not alone.
All right, thanks.
This is the hard part, is finding that balance, but you don't want to, once you get familiar with it, you're really handling it so gently as you're rolling it out, and the flour is on the coating on the outside. But the hard thing to gauge is how much, since we're all using different ricotta, how much water content is in your ricotta.
Right.
So that is a major factor because it can be very different. So you got to get a feel for it. But you see how, I use no more than a cup with 12 ounces of ricotta. And it's a very wet dough. But once I put that flour on the outside here, okay. So that's all of my ricotta. I'm going to clean up my workspace here and prepare for the boiling water. And then we're going to make our salad dressing. So my hope is that you guys are able to suss it out and get yours cut. All right. Let me just move this, clean off my bench. How's that working for the ASMR people? Good sound?
Great. Headphones.
All right, we are cooking dinner. The funny thing is that I'm doing what I just normally do on like a weeknight, and you guys just happen to be in my living room. But this is what we do. So it's kind of nice to have you here with me, people. I wish the circumstances were different. Okay, let's get back to speaker view. I'm putting the gnocchi aside for a moment while the water boils, and I'm bringing over my bowl to do salad dressing. So, oh, you know what? I'm gonna need my cutting board quick because we're gonna do some shallots. So I'm gonna take a shallot. These are the bigger ones from our cow soy. These are not the Asian shallots. And I'm going to chop this sucker up. I think I'm going to do it this way and this way. And I'm going to go for, a fairly fine dice
Sorry.
on the shallot for the dressing. You can use onion if you don't have access to shallot. I would say that it would be a red onion, though. I would not use a yellow onion in this sort of a thing. Let me see here. I see a message from my lovely mother from another brother. Okay. All right, so shallot. These have some interesting layers on them. Okay. Chop up our shallot. And you can go whatever size pieces work for you in your salad. I mean, I like them smaller for a dressing because we're going to use them in the bowl as I make the dressing. But if you want big pieces of shallot in the salad to be like a contrast to the sweetness. Now, speaking of sweetness, I use for this sherry vinegar. I think Hero's original recipe that I learned was with balsamic. And you are welcome to use balsamic. I think it would be lovely with balsamic. I'm going to stir my sauce a little bit. Oh my God. It's just heaven. So if you prefer balsamic, just don't add the honey part of this. I put honey here because it's nice to have a little bit of sweetness. So dressing is pretty simple. You got your shallot. I'm going to put a little Dijon mustard. Probably a teaspoon. Go a little more if you like it. This sort of dressing, so think about this. This is a base of a vinaigrette, and you can do whatever you want. Add whatever you want. Use this as a basic foundation of a vinaigrette, but change it up. Put the things that really stand out to you in the various categories. A different type of vinegar, a different type of oil, a different type of herb, different type of sweetness. Just think about the base components. So that's about half a teaspoon of honey that I'm putting in here. And that'll add a little bit of sweetness to balance out pretty sharp sherry vinegar. So I have 2 sherry vinegars here. I wasn't sure if I had enough of one or the other. They're both pretty good quality. This one's a little bit cheaper, but I actually really like the taste of that one. These are herbs de Provence, and my herbs de Provence, I'm just going to put in a couple pinches. Add some really nice herbaceousness to it. I'm not shy with it, but I don't go crazy. And I'm just going to get that all incorporated. And I'm going to add some of the sherry vinegar. Let's say 1-2 tablespoons to start. Same if you're using balsamic, just don't put the honey in. I'm probably going to need another tablespoon for that full head, maybe even 2 more. So that was probably about a 1/4 cup. And you can see inside my bowl. I'll show you inside my bowl. So there's that much liquid in there. And then what we're gonna do is, much like we did on the Caesar salad, is I'm gonna take a second fork and I'm going to create something of an emulsion. There's not really that many emulsifying agents in here. So, oh, and before I do that, I'm gonna crack some pepper in it. Quite a bit of pepper, I like it. And then I'm gonna take a second fork, and with my 2 forks, I'm gonna drizzle olive oil in there while I mix it all together. Get it going pretty fast, and you'll see that it'll come together. You won't have separated oil and vinegar. And I'm probably putting in maybe a half a cup of olive oil, and taste it. If it's too vinegary for you, add a little bit more. But remember, when it gets spread out on the salad, one, I like a nice sharp vinegar flavor. Oh, that's good. When it gets spread out on the salad, it gets diluted a little bit. So that's about as much as I made right there. See all the beautiful herbs mixed in. There's a pretty good emulsion going on. It's not like thick and mayonnaise-y, but a nice vinaigrette. That's the base. Now, I make a salad. A lot of you have had, I make a salad with a citrus. I use grapefruits, and I put grapefruit segments in it, and I put hazelnuts, and it's the same concept. The difference is I don't use the sherry vinegar. I'll use grapefruit juice. When I do the supremes of the grapefruit, I'll save the juice, and I'll use that. And I might put in different herbs. I might put in some cheese, which I'm going to put cheese on the salad. I'm just not putting it in the dressing. Okay, so the dressing's ready. I'm going to put that aside. And I'm going to go back to my lettuce now. So if we look at the lettuce that had been soaking in the ice water, you're going to see that it's actually started to come apart a little bit. You see how the being in the water like that has pulled apart some of the leaves, and the ice water is sort of soaking through it, which is a beautiful thing. That's what we want. I can show the overhead. So this is perfect. Like I said, I normally would let this go a little bit longer. I would probably let this go for a full hour at least to really leach out the bitterness. But for the sake of our show, it's not that bad if it's been in there for about a half an hour. So I'm going to drain this and then dry it. And much like I taught you guys with the Caesar salad, get the water out. Nothing ruins a salad dressing like water. It's like the antithesis of salad dressing. Okay, my water is boiling here. I'm going to test the gnocchi just to see that we have great success. Throw it in the pot, and then shortly thereafter, it should float. And if it floats, we've got a winner. I'm going to do a second round of this lettuce. I just like doing that. And then same thing I do with the Caesar salad. I'm going to take some paper towels. Don't need the cutting board anymore. And dry off my lettuce a little bit more in the paper towel. I know it's a waste. Environmental people, I will compost it and try to maximize the usage. So I'm going to take this lettuce and I'm going to hand tear it. into smaller pieces. And then I'm going to dry it off on here, and it'll be ready for our salad. The little pieces I don't need to break up much.
Adam,
Yes.
did you drop a gnocchi in the water?
I dropped one in just as a tester.
Okay, so it stays in there for a couple minutes?
It's done now. So here is my tester gnocchi. Beautiful, stayed together nicely. And sorry, a little X-rated here, but it's fucking delicious. So I know that was, and we're gonna get
And
on.
how do you know when it's ready?
How do I know what?
When it's ready to come out?
It should float, but they may not float
Okay.
to the top. They may be floating around the middle a little bit. Taste one and see if it's cooked all the way through. That's the best gauge, is just to taste it and see, is it done all the way through. That's the main thing, is, you know, you don't want any raw parts on it. It cooks pretty quickly though. I would say it was probably in there less than 2 minutes. Maybe 90 seconds to 2 minutes at most. Okay, so I'm gonna dry off this lettuce. I'm gonna go cook the gnocchi now while this is getting a little bit more dry. And then we're gonna plate it all up and wrap this up. So let me get the overhead. Let's hope that it doesn't overheat like it does every other time. Okay, so it's got to go like this. Is that working? No. I don't even see it. Oh, it's in safe driving mode. Oops. Sorry about that. Okay, so now you've got the overhead. I'll set this on so everybody can see it. And in I go with the gnocchi. So it was a little slow because I got to do them one at a time. If you actually did it on your pan upside down, you could slide them off. A little bit easier. But you don't want to crowd them in here because they're fragile little creatures. So do them one at a time. It's okay. Touch all your food. Just don't touch it if you have coronavirus. And I hope nobody has coronavirus. But I know that you can't get it through Zoom calls, so you're good. Okay, so I'm going to do this in 2 batches. That's the first batch. And I'm going to get a little platter to put them on. Put them on this guy. So as you put them in, that many of them, it's going to lower the temperature of your water a little bit. So it's going to take a little bit longer for them to cook because the water has to come up to temperature to boil. It's not significant, but if you used a laser thermometer and took the temperature of the water before and after, there's going to be a few degrees of difference. And that's why I put the lid back on, just to sort of give it inspiration to come back up. Now, while I'm doing that, I'm going to season my tomato sauce. I'm going to hit it with some salt. This is really important. This is a well-salted sauce, and it makes all the difference in the world. You know, salt as a seasoning is a great unifier. Salt brings the other flavors together. So the fat from the butter, the acidity and the sweetness from the tomatoes, the earthiness of the onion, they all need the salt to be that point of unification. So I'm going to put a couple 3 pinches of salt in there and then taste. Man, couple 3. My gnocchi are pretty much done. See the floaters? You guys see the floaters? Those are done. Okay. Pull them out. Come in, she says, I'll give you shelter from the storm. These are making me want to cheat on my diet. All right, and I'm going to drop in the next round. And then we'll get back to tasting the tomato sauce. Almost done here. Magnifique. Like I said, the only real difference, significant difference between these and your potato gnocchi is that you're going to boil potatoes and run them through a ricer versus the ricotta. Oh, shoot. Just get flour all over myself. So as you can see, these are the completed first round, or here, put it under this camera. Beautiful little gnocchi. And the second round will come together. You don't want them to sit too long. Oh, and if you were freezing them, you freeze them before you put them in the water. So if you were going to freeze some, don't cook them. Just take those guys on the sheet pan, put them in the freezer, and then cook them straight from the freezer in boiling water.
Adam, if I have extra batter, don't freeze the batter.
No, make
roll
the
them out
gnocchi
first.
Yeah, make the gnocchi, then
Okay.
freeze the gnocchi.
Okay, thanks.
Take the gun, leave the cannoli. Okay, I'm going to taste this sauce. I have a feeling it'll need more salt. Oh, no. I hit it. So that was 3 little pinches of salt. Goodness gracious. And I got floaters again. And, you know, these guys, they won't stick together too much unless they sit here for a long time. So if you're going to have them sit there for a little bit, you might just hit them with a little olive oil so that they don't bunch up. It can't hurt it, especially if you're putting them in tomato sauce. Those of you that don't want to do a tomato sauce, this would be a time for you to saute up some butter, fry some sage in that butter, toss these guys in there, make some mushroom, put them in with mushrooms, whatever you're fancy, whatever you fancy. Like I said, 420. All right, so I'm gonna hit these with a little more olive oil so they don't stick. I might just do like a whole tray like this for our presentation, because look at that. These are not the type of thing that you need to finish cooking in the sauce. These you can sauce. So look at that. There's your overhead shot of the gnocchi. Steaming plate of beautiful jiggly pillows of love. They're cooked all the way through. They've got a really great flavor of Parmesan and ricotta. And to finish it, I just want to get some tomato sauce on them. So I'm going to remove the onion from the sauce, and you can try to repurpose it if you want. Wash it off, use it for something else. Otherwise, your tomato sauce is ready. Hey, Judah, come here. I'm going to make some for Judah to try. And I will photograph it. So I'll make a little smaller plate for my boy, because he's not getting dinner. This is his dinner. And then I'm going to put some of this beautiful sauce on it. And then hit it with a little Parmesan. You got to be my taster today, bud.
Okay.
Say hi to everybody.
Hi. Hi.
Okay. So I'm going to hit it with a little Parmesan. So these are the gnocchi, finished portion right there. And Mr. Zolot Jr. See Robert?
Hey, Robert. Okay.
You better like them. Go ahead.
I'm waiting for it to cool down.
Oh, watch out, don't spill.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. I taught the boy well. All right,
It's
off he
delicious.
goes. Okay, now we're gonna finish up with our salad. I've got my lettuce. I'm gonna make you some salad too, okay, bud?
Hey, Zola, our pillows of love, We're muted. they look like pillows of hate.
Uh-oh.
We're not.
Let me see. Show me. What happened? Yeah, that's good. He's still saying it's good. Let me see. I can't see your camera. What's wrong with them? Are they just misshapen? You're muted. Robert, you're muted. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to the salad. I want to help you guys if you have issues. So back to the salad. I'm just reincorporating, making sure the emulsification held. It held up pretty well while it was waiting. And then I'm going to dump my lettuce in there. Judah and I are not going to be able to eat the entire head of Radicchio. He doesn't even like Radicchio, but I soaked it so that it isn't as bitter. And then I'm going to mix it up. Actually, you know what? Got enough dressing in there. I'll eat this. This is my dinner. And then we're going to hit it with some parm, quite a bit of parm. And I think that's part of the key to this is getting a nice liberal amount of Parmesan on your salad. So back to the parm. You could make croutons for this. It goes well with croutons. He ate all the gnocchi. Good boy,
Out
Judah.
of my entire batch of gnocchi has disappeared.
What do you mean? They ate them?
They ate the whole thing in literally 2 minutes.
You're gonna have to make more.
It was delicious.
Fantastic. Good to hear. I thought you meant they dissolved in the
No, they dissolved in my family's stomach. It's like,
nice. Okay, so here is the finished salad. I'll hit it with a little more parm on top, a little bit of pepper. And I give you the Radicchio salad. It's ridiculous. So that's it. I'm here for questions, guys. If anybody's having struggle with this, I know the technique is a little challenging. It could just be the shape, or if sometimes if there's not the right amount of proportions, then it's going to fall apart in your water. So I want to make sure that everybody's got this. And if you have any questions, so hit me now. Otherwise, I'm done.
Adam, mine are they're a funny shape. They taste good, but they're a little bit dense.
So too much flour.
Too much flour. Okay.
Yeah, definitely too much flour if they're dense. They should be light as air.
Okay.
And it's just a matter of getting comfortable with the idea that that wet dough is actually your friend. That as you put a little flour on top and you roll it gently with your hands, you're going to be fine. It's just a matter of getting the right floured surface and the right movement on it. Bergen, how'd yours turn out?
I don't think I did the movement and the flouring right, but they're amazing.
Nice.
I might have got lucky.
No. I mean, it looked like you were doing it right.
Well, it's like these guys down here, where I don't know if you can see them. This guy, they're like, you know, any bit inside is pretty wet, which I think is good. And I didn't really get much of a roll going.
Yeah, you got to get your work surface is the most important thing. If your work surface is floured properly, then you'll be able to get that movement. Once it starts to stick to your work surface, then you need the bench scraper to start fresh. Move it out of the way with the bench scraper, put flour down, and then start rolling it. Because if you get tension on the surface and it sticks there, then it's not going to continue to roll. And there's no way out of that other than, you know, pressing it down, and it gets even worse.
Right.
So if that happens, use your bench scraper, come underneath it, get flour underneath it, and then roll.
Okay. So I got a couple more I can dry that on that I have not
Yeah.
put through that process yet.
So Adam, is it that you want the outside, like you were saying, a little tension? The flour creates tension on the outside, but the inside is still going to be sticky and.
Yes. Yeah. It's actually the opposite. The flour reduces tension on the outside.
Oh, okay.
It's
Oh, right.
So that you can roll, and then you're just using light, gentle motion as you roll it to grow it out. If you put too much pressure on it, then it's going to make the wet stick to your countertop. So, you know, I would say using like a stone countertop like mine or a wood cutting board will all work fine. And it's just a matter of getting that light movement. So if that's that, I'm going to leave you guys. Great job. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. We've got a bunch of great stuff coming up. So I think this Friday I'm doing pork dumplings, which I'm really excited about. I love Chinese pork dumplings. And then next Monday, we're going to go veg, go figure, and do 2 different ways of Brussels sprouts, which I love. And these are great, great recipes. And then the following Friday, Thursday and Friday, we've got a pretty epic setup. I highly recommend. We're going to do handmade tortellini, the way that I learned to make it in Bologna 3 years ago, as well as a proper ragu bolognese, which is the mother of all meat sauces. And we're going to do it right. So if you want to learn how to do those, come back. You guys, enjoy doing this. Hope you enjoyed it too. Enjoy your dinners.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, Adam.
Delicious.
Bye,
Hi,
guys.
Hi, Bergen. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Jody. Hi, Aaron.